If you've ever been in New York City, you know there's really no shortage of coffee shops and cafes. But there's one that's doing it entirely different from the rest. Ginjan Cafe, located on 125th Street in Harlem, lives by their phrase, born of Africa, made in New York. The two brothers, Muhammad and Rahim, immigrated from Guinea over 2 decades ago and decided to start the company back in 2014 after recognizing that African culture just really wasn't being represented in the way they thought it should be. So with less than $200 in their pockets and a whole lot of drive, the brothers decided to open up shop right here in the soul of Manhattan, and have since left their mark, with their products being featured in stores like Whole Foods, Walmart, and over 90 different convenience stores across New York. We're here today to talk to the guys about how they got started, learn the importance of black ownership, figure out how to make their signature Jinjan drink, and just figure out just a little more about the guys. So without further ado, I'm your host, Kwari Aline, and welcome to episode 4 of the Up and Coming Podcast. So we here with one half of the Ginjan Bros. My guy Rahim here. Before we get into anything, you gotta teach me how to make this drink, man. I haven't had it yet, so I gotta see the different variations. I know you can have it hot and cold, things like that.
You can have it hot and cold, and I have another surprise for you. One of our hot specialties here that we're not even selling in the open market right now. You can only get it here at the cafe. So I'll also make you another latte, hot and cold, that version. It's a Moroccan mint-based tea.
Nice, right. Perfect. That's up and coming special, man. So this is actually my first time behind the barista stand, man. So you gotta walk me through this whole process like I'm a kid, because I have no clue what I'm doing.
No problem. Well, today we won't get into all the intricacies of the machine.
Right.
Since we're not making any espresso-based drinks, we'll have to come back another time for the training. But we will be using the steaming one, right? So pretty much the basics of any sort of espresso maker like this is you have they call them the groups that you use to extract espresso, and then you have the steam one that sorry, it won't burn you. Don't be it's scarier than that, but it just lets out steam essentially. That's what you use to heat up lattes, cappuccinos. But today we'll be using that to make our house specialty. This is essentially the way we started the brand. The idea really is to develop and bring to market food and beverage products that are inspired by traditional African recipes. Right? This is a very popular drink that you find all over West Africa.
And I know you said it was like an apple juice of West Africa, right? Like
that's right.
Over here.
That's right. I grew up on this the way kids grow up on apple juice here, right? One of many drinks along that line. This specific one is made with fresh ginger, cold pressed pineapples, lemon, vanilla, and anise.
Sounds amazing.
Right?
Sounds good.
It starts out a little sweet, and then as you drink it, you get some of the tanginess from the citrus, and you get a nice kick from the ginger at the back end. Right? So we'll start with the classic one. It's just as is, cold pressed, pour it over a cup of ice.
Nice.
Right? On a hot day like today, you can't find any better. So let's step over. So that's right. We'll give you a refreshment to keep this going. Right?
Exactly.
There you go. Gives you a little foam, so it's nice and frothy. Phenomenal mouthfeel. Right?
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's the first time on camera. Oh man, yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, you definitely get a kick after, but it's sweet. You taste all the ingredients, and it's refreshing. I need it real bad.
Thank you. Let's hook up the people doing all the work, the folks behind the camera.
Yeah, right. Behind the scenes crew.
There you go, bro.
That's amazing.
Right? And then the last one, right? This is especially for folks that cannot handle too much of the heat. And for folks in the morning that say in the winter want a latte, want something creamy or frothy, but they don't want to take in any caffeine. They want a natural source of energy.
Yeah, right.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Wow. That's nice. That's amazing.
Right?
All right. Well, we tried the drinks. We got everyone done. now sit down and do our formal interview. But thanks so much for showing us that, man. I got a gift for you as well. So you can show me, you show me what you do. I'll show you what I brought along for you.
Make it out.
Maybe you might be able to use it in the cafe. We'll see.
Oh man, no, I'm excited.
All right.
Let's make it out.
All good. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 4 of the Up and Coming podcast. I'm here with one half of the Ginjan Bros, my guy Rahim. Nice to be here with you, man. Finally, getting in. I know we spoke back in March, and I asked you to come on. We finally made it happen, man. So I know Muhammad couldn't be here today, but we got you. So we about to go do it.
I'll do my best to represent the both of us.
Unfortunately,
you couldn't be here, but yeah, we're really excited to have you here, and thank you so much for extending your platform to us.
Thank you, man. Now, if you were watching on YouTube, you saw us make the drinks in the beginning. So you gifted me with something extremely special. It's my first time having it. So it's tradition on this show to give every guest a personalized gift. I don't know if you watched any of the episodes yet, but that's what we do here. Thanks. So for you, I searched high and low for something to get you guys. I was thinking something along the lines of music, but then I landed on the fact that I knew you guys are from Guinea, so I landed on a mask that's called the Landa mask, and it's named after the chief of the Toma people, and they kind of inhabit the southeastern border of Guinea. So I found a mask that you might be able to hang up in the cafe, or in the crib, anything like that, man. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, man. That's for you, my guy. That's
Thank
for
you so
man.
much,
Absolutely.
Dude. Wow.
Absolutely.
Like, this kind of takes me way back. We grew up seeing masks like this, and honestly, this is the first piece of something we actually planned on doing in here, right? Like that little hallway or down the hall as you head towards the bathroom, we wanted to turn that into an art gallery where we showcase African art and things like that. And this is the first piece we're actually getting. And the fact that it comes from our people, specifically from Guinea, is amazing. Extremely thoughtful, bro.
Absolutely,
Thank
man.
you so much.
I'm glad you like it.
Now
man.
I feel like our juice doesn't even compare.
Listen, man, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect, bro.
Thank you so much,
absolutely,
bro.
man.
Wow,
No doubt.
much appreciated.
No doubt, man.
Amazing.
Thank
you.
Yeah, man. So, just going back a little bit, because you remember we spoke in March at kind of the height of COVID, and I know you guys just opened back up about 2 weeks ago, had a wedding in here over the weekend.
Yep.
So how have things been, now that things are a little bit back to normal or a little bit, normalized in a way?
Oh, they're hardly back to normal. We, like you said, we shut down back on March 17th, I believe it was, when we realized that this pandemic was for real. We shut down in March and April. And when the city and state of New York decided that they would allow indoor dining, around June 23rd, we decided, hey, let's open back up and try to get back into the groove of things. Right. Unfortunately, a few days before that happened, they announced that it's not safe to have folks dining indoors yet, and we understand that. It's as much as we'd like to be back in business for things to go back to normal. The safety and security of pretty much everyone takes priority over business, honestly.
Absolutely, for sure.
So we understand. We're back open right now. We're only running half days from 8 to 2 p.m. We close on weekends. It's fairly slow, but we're here. We have a core audience, our neighbors, some folks that are back at work in the area that really depend on us to get a cup of coffee in the morning. And it brings us great pleasure to come in here and be able to provide that to them.
Awesome, man. That's great. And the one thing that stuck out to me during that interview that we did then, was kind of a class interview that I was doing, kind of something I was just trying to get a grade on, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that I'm super passionate about, and we kind of get to sit down in long form and do it. But the one thing that stuck out was your optimism. I was talking to you with like, what's the point of being depressed and sad when you can't do anything about it, right? Yeah. We got running water, we got food, we got our families. And you were like, I come from a third world country. So, to come over here, what's there to complain about?
Right.
And that's something like your resiliency in the face of obstacles is something that you and your brother have kind of displayed your entire lives from the beginning, with you guys' story to now, the constant challenges. Where does that stem from for you guys?
Thank you. Honestly, I would give credit to our parents for that. We grew up in a third world country that, by all standard economic measures would be a hellhole to grow up in, right? But we didn't feel like that growing up. I didn't grow up feeling like I'm missing anything, right? We had all the love and support we needed from our parents. They encouraged us to get an education, to work hard, and to just really give our all into everything we do. So, and that stuck with us, you know. And coming here, some of that also we learned here, honestly, right? The U.S. in many ways is one of the more optimistic countries in the world, right? It used to be the most.
As of recent times, yeah, for sure.
Of late, you know, we've had a lot of small little setbacks, but despite all that, it's still a place where there's a sense of can do, right? So you know, the foundation we had back home, and coming here and getting the opportunity to not only get an education, but also, honestly, we got very lucky here because we had folks here that embraced us, right? And took us under their wings. We came at a really young age. We were lucky enough to have adults here that treated us and looked after us the way our parents would have. Right. And yeah, all those things coming together is really what made us the people we are today. You know?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So I know, looking back on your story, because I was going through a bunch of articles reading about you guys' upbringing coming over here. Now I know Muhammad came over here first. And went through some mishaps his own, you know, when he came over here, stayed with a family that thought you guys came for money and was going to get something out of him. Yeah. And when they found out that wasn't the case, he was kind of fending for himself, you know, sleeping on the corner and the floor. Those, you know, during those times for you, how difficult was that? You know, you spent some time in juvie a little bit, you know, which is crazy to me now to see you just sitting here as this smiling guy. What were those times like for you during, you know, back then?
Not easy, you know. Yeah. My brother came before I did, right? He's my older brother. So he came in 97, and he was really young. He was 11, 12 years old.
That was the year I was born, man. That's crazy.
Right? Yeah. That's crazy to think about, right?
Yeah, man.
So he was just a little kid when he got here. At first, he stayed with essentially adoptive grandparents of our family. So my dad came to grad school. He had a Humphrey Fellowship, come to the States and study back in '92, and he was at Penn State and Boston University, and in a few other spaces in the Cambridge area. And when he was at Penn State, one of his professors there really took a liking to him, and he was an older couple. They both taught at Penn State, and they had my dad essentially move in with them, and stay with them, so they treated him like a son. So my brother came here to stay with them, right, to just visit, spend the summer. And he ended up staying with the sister of one of my dad's friends in Guinea, right, that lived in Atlanta, so he can stay and study here. Unfortunately, my dad's friend back home was an amazing guy. His sister, we thought, would be along the same lines. But you know, his life there wasn't very easy.
Right.
Unfortunately, they thought we came from money, like you alluded to, and that that my parents would send more than enough money to support him.
Right.
They sent enough money to support him, but not the extra that they thought, you know, they could get out of him. And beyond that, he just wasn't treated well at all. He ended up essentially being kicked out of the house at 16. Right, and so he found himself more or less homeless, stuck around Atlanta for a little bit, found a way back to New York. Then a little bit later, went up to New Hampshire because another one of my dad's friends was up there, finished high school there, comes back to New York, no papers. He was a phenomenal athlete in high school, track, soccer, basketball. Pretty much since we were kids, anything he touches, it's as if he's been doing it his whole life, you know? So he could have gotten scholarships to play. I think he was a better basketball player than he was a soccer player, but he liked soccer a lot. So he would have gotten a scholarship to go to Penn State and a bunch of other schools, but he didn't have papers. So he ended up not getting that. So anyways, he comes back to New York City, working odd jobs, like craziest thing you'd imagine. Worked at the car wash in the middle of the winter, would make, you know, I hate to put him on blast like this, but back in those days, people would make CDs were still a thing back then. Right. I don't know if kids know what that is these days.
For sure, yeah.
They would make these bootleg CDs and sell them, like, you know, sell stuff on Broadway down here, like literally all the stereotypical immigrant jobs, he would do that, right? He'd work for a year, go to school for 1 semester because that's the only way he could pay for it. Essentially, it took him 8 years to finish undergrad.
Yeah, and he went to Mercy, right?
He started out at Poly.
Okay.
At NYU Poly.
Yeah.
He couldn't keep going because he couldn't afford to pay for it.
Wow.
He played on their soccer team for a little bit, but they wouldn't give him a scholarship, so he ended up having to leave that and go finish up at Mercy. You know. But yeah, in that after around the time he finished high school, I came and joined. And
you said that was around the time of like 9/11, right? So now y'all are both coming in this tumultuous time. And you said, like, you know, coming in as a Muslim, it's like everybody's kind of honed in on the fact that everyone who believes in that faith is of that ilk who, you know, caused this catastrophe in this country.
Yeah.
How was that for you coming in? Like, this is a new country for you, and your first introduction is that.
Yeah, you grew up, you know, Guinea is about 87% Muslim, right? There are Christians, there are Catholics, but religious tension never existed around where we were. Like, there was a church across the street from my house, for example, and you know that's not something we would have ever thought of. And again, when we came, we were little kids. My name is Ibrahim. My brother's name is Muhammad.
Exactly, pretty obvious,
right?
Yeah.
So even if you weren't Muslim, with those names,
it's synonymous with you
automatically,
yeah.
right? And after 9/11, I mean, 9/11 really was the worst thing that ever happened to this country.
On this soil,
Harbor, right?
Yeah.
And you know, immigration just shut down, right? The feeling, the xenophobia was through the roof at the time, and the feeling was that the U.S. would completely like stop giving papers, or it really shut down immigration to anyone, especially if they come from foreign nations. So I decided to go to Canada when I was 15.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't. Clearly, I'm not in Canada. So.
That's incredible, man. Wow. Yeah. So, like, you know, you guys coming over as first generation immigrants, was there ever any pressure? Because I know for a lot of, you know, kids coming over, it's like, you know, we have to succeed here. Was that ever something that you guys felt, that pressure from back home, or it was just like, we're here to do the best that we can, you know, during our time here?
It's not, you know, the expectations from our family, our parents, didn't change, right? So
it was the same
it was
there
the
as
same.
It was
like,
here, yeah.
Had we stayed back home, it would have been, you know, you work, you put in work, right? And we were very lucky because I don't ever remember my dad putting pressure on us or my mom to be perfect in any way, right? Like I never came home and failed to get a perfect score and have my dad scold me. Like, he'll sit me down, talk to me, what went wrong, what didn't. So we were extremely lucky in that we had a very supportive family, right? The expectation was you work very hard, and if that results in perfection, great. If it doesn't, it's okay, as long as you put in the work, you know? So it wasn't any different. However, us being here, we knew without it having been explicitly said that, you know, we have to.
For sure.
We have to make it happen.
Yeah. And you guys have no support system here. It's just you guys kind of leaning on each other. And, you know, during that time where you guys were separated, did that ever put a strain on your relationship? Because I know you were in one part of the country or in Canada at one time, and he's here. Did that distance ever get in the way of you guys at all?
Oh, I didn't make it to Canada.
Oh, no, you didn't?
I didn't make it to Canada.
Oh, man.
So, I got, the plan was I get on the bus and go to the Canadian border and essentially turn myself into the Canadian authorities and try to get, to immigrate to Canada and get papers that way, right? I take a bus from New York to Burlington, Vermont. Mind you, I'm 15 years old, right? I could hardly speak any English, right? I mean, I could introduce myself and things like that, but I could not carry on. I could not advocate for myself in English, right? So I take a bus to Burlington in Vermont. get off, go to the Greyhound, like tiny little Greyhound. I mean, it's Vermont, everything is tiny. It's a small population.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
So I go up, try to buy a ticket, and they ask me for my papers. Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a permanent resident, etc.? No. And he goes, well, I cannot sell you a ticket to cross international borders without the right documentation, which is like, duh, right?
At 15, it's just like, I get on the bus and I go.
Right?
That's it, yeah.
But in my head, I wasn't trying to cross the border. I just was trying to get to the border, So he says he can sell me a ticket. And now all my plans just essentially went up in flames.
And you're stuck in Burlington, Vermont.
Right? I sit there for a few minutes, and this, it's an older gentleman. It comes around from behind the cash register, the counter, and comes up to me and says, "Listen, I can sell you a ticket to some." He mentioned some stop, that's not far from the border. I just found out a few months ago that it was Swanton, Vermont. All these years I didn't know where I was arrested.
That's crazy.
So he puts me on the bus, and I find this out later, right? Turns out he had called immigration and told them, the situation, but they didn't have enough time to get down to where I was, right? So the plan was, sell me a ticket, put me on the bus, and they'll stop the bus.
Right, and take you over, yeah.
Yeah?
Wow.
So they end up, we get enough at one of the stops, because every 2 hours, ground stops, they pull it over, they say it's a routine check, but I knew better.
Wow.
I get off, guy stops me, asks for my papers. I don't have any papers, any green cards, visa, blah, blah, blah. I don't have anything. Then I realize, okay, I'm about to get myself in trouble, and I can barely speak any English. So I tell him, sorry, I say it in French. I'm just, désolé, je parle pas anglais, right? So he laughs and goes, how convenient. All of a sudden, you don't speak any English. Handcuffs me, throws me in the back of his patrol car, and take me to a detention center. So that took me from there. I had 2 U.S. Marshals escort me in the middle of the night, right? Out of this, the coldest cell I've ever been in, coldest room I've ever been in, I guess. Pulls me out in the middle of the night, 2 U.S. Marshals in civilian clothes, take me to the airport, flies me to Pennsylvania in handcuffs.
What?
A 15-year-old kid, right? And I end up in this juvenile detention center for about almost a year, 11 months and 2 days, I believe. So that's why I'm not in Canada.
That is incredible, man.
Yeah.
That's insane. And to see how much, how far you guys came from that time here, what lessons along the way did you take from those, adverse circumstances and kind of, take with you building what today we know as Jinjan?
You don't know what you're capable of until you're put in a position where you have to deal with it, And some of those things were happening, and same with my brother, right? The time my brother spent in Atlanta, was not fun for him, and he was actually there for for 3 years in that place. He wasn't in jail, but
right.
It was just.
It might have been well,
bad,
yeah,
right? Yeah. And when you find yourself in those situations, you're not thinking back at it. You can think about it and strategize, but when you're in it, you're just surviving day to day, right? What's my next move? How can I make the next
rather
move
than living.
to get me to the next step?
Right.
And you're making decisions with very limited information. You have no idea the context you're operating in, completely foreign land. So yeah, you develop a lot of skills in terms of how to deal with people, how to get people that normally would not care about you at all, right? To care, right?
Right.
But yeah, you learn to come up with solutions.
Right. And I can only imagine in the business sector, being able to sell to a VC when you walk in and you and your brother. And I was watching a video which you guys did with Andre Hatchett on his podcast where it's like 99% of these VCs are white, and
Yeah.
they kind of give these money to people who look like them.
Yeah.
You and your brother coming in selling this story that they have no clue about. They don't know what Jinjan is, and you have to kind of cold sell them on, listen, we have the next best thing, and we're trying to sell this to you to give us some capital in return. Like, when you're in those meetings, what are those like? Because I'm a huge Shark Tank fan, like, and that's what I envision them always being like, and I know that's not always the case.
Yeah.
But what are they like when you're walking in and you know that, if I wouldn't open my mouth, these people probably wouldn't even look at me twice. You know what I mean? With what I'm selling, how does that factor in with you guys?
Well, even when you open your mouth, often they usually don't look at you twice. The challenges of being, a person of color in the world, really, right? But we'll stick to the U.S. since that's where we are pretty well known by everyone at this point. And in the business space, that's especially in venture funding, right? In all kinds of funding, but venture funding, it's very it becomes very glaring as to how little exposure the people that control the capital have, how little they're exposed to people of color, if you will, right? So over time, at the beginning, we used to think, oh, you know what, these people just don't like black people, or they're racist, or whatever, right? And we've kind of moved away from that position a little bit. Yeah, I'm more than certain that some of those folks are racist, but I think the vast majority, right? They're no pattern recognition, right?
Right, it's like pattern recognition, what you meant. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's human nature. We do what we know. We do what we've seen before. We invest in people that look like people that have succeeded in the past, right? So if I walk up to a VC and tell them our story, how we started the business, how much we bootstrapped, like all the struggles we went through, and that investor happens to be an entrepreneur that went through similar experiences, if they're white, they'll hear my story, they'll relate to it, right? But they will not see themselves in me. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely.
And I don't see any way of overcoming that does not involve people of color actually managing the money and being the ones that are investing in it. Right? So that's just being black and looking for money. And then we have a problem on top of that. We're pitching brand Africa, right?
Yeah.
To people that more often than not, even within the context of the US, they know so little about black people in this country.
Right.
When you mention Africa to them,
it's save the children, feed the children, exactly. Or everything's in ruin, it's despair, it's You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hunger, it's famine, it's corruption, et cetera, et cetera. That's the vision they have of Africa. They wouldn't even believe that you can build and sell something in Africa, right? Which is crazy because these are typically very bright people.
Yeah, and this is the same continent that you extract all of these resources for that funds the rest of the globe.
To this day.
Yeah.
To this day, you think about something like, Guinea was a former French colony. Guinea is a former French colony, and most of West Africa is actually, other than Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea-Bissau. Most of West Africa is old French colonies. The currency is the franc CFA, right? And that is still controlled by the French, in short, right? Like if as a sovereign country in West Africa, if you don't have total control over your money, how can you be an independent country without having total control of your money, right? So, anyways, like these folks do not see Africa in any bright light. So if I go to a VC and I'm trying to convince them, hey, this is a continent of 1.2 billion people. The brand we're starting to build here, even forget Africa for 1 second. What we're trying to make are, have all the attributes that you would look for in the blockbuster food and beverage company, right? It's the product that has existed forever, right? So there's a ready-made market in the whole continent for that.
Right.
Second, they all have the attributes of where the food and beverage space is going. It's fresh, organic, it's non-GMO, it has functional ingredients. So from our from Jinjan, the ginger-based drink, to the Bissap, our hibiscus-based drink that we're not bottling that yet, but will start. Really, all the foods we're looking to commercialize here are foods that are fit the description of what people are asking for today in America, right? But they'll hear all that if they hear we're trying to commercialize African-inspired traditional food and beverage products. It's like they check out, which is funny to me because one of the things that all brands try to like fabricate is a story, an origin story, and all that. We have that baked into our products. We have that baked into our brand, right? And still, we have a really hard time communicating this to these VCs. Maybe we're not very good at pitching, right? But we've had some conversations with folks, and we've heard some things come out of people's mouths in those meetings that lets us know that it's not just because we're bad at pitching,
right? Yeah. Oh man. And you mentioned, the idea of Africa kind of being this place that's still in ruin. Mm-hmm. The culture's kind of starting to take over. It's starting to shift now, where we're seeing it be kind of implemented in all of these different sectors, whether it's entertainment, it's business, it's music. How gratifying is that for you to finally see it being appreciated in some form, in some way, that people are actually seeing it in a different light now? At least we are, because I think for so long, like Black Americans, we're even uneducated on Africa.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, just to not even know the vast size of how large Africa is, because it's been a lie on the map for however long. But how good is it for you to see us finally kind of the ball starting to roll a little bit?
It feels good on one, it feels good, but there's a flip side to that, right? It's also concerning because now that it's becoming mainstream, everyone will want to capitalize on it. And honestly, this is not new, right? Like if you think about the culture of this country, right? Everything from jazz to doo-wop to the blues and all
rock,
of that, right?
Everything.
Rock, all of these, right? All of these stems from, African spoken word. Like these are the things we grew up on. I remember one day my brother and I were talking, and we hadn't even put two and two together. We were watching a video, and someone, a rap video. Yeah. Someone was making it rain, right? And then we remembered that during weddings back home, culturally, that's the thing.
Wow. I had no clue.
Right?
Man.
So we've been making it rain.
And that's been a historical thing.
We've been making it rain before the slave ships.
Wow, man. That is insane. Yeah. So from that to like literally the cultural fabric of the U.S. And I tell you what, the most powerful tool the U.S. has to control the world, right? You can get technical and say, talk about money and all this stuff, but it's the culture, right? Everyone thinks of the U.S., they think of it as being cool, And the thing that make the U.S. cool, it's all those things that we talk about. It's the music, the culture, etc., right? And a lot of that is in one way or the other. You think about sports, right? What would the NBA be without Black people in America, or the NFL, et cetera, right? But you look at, let's say, the NFL, some 75% of the league is Black. But you look at ownership, you look at management, you look at the coaches, et cetera. That's not reflected, right? So that's my concern about African culture becoming mainstream, right? And part of our reason for doing this, it's out of that concern, right? It's, we wanted to, do our part to put Africa on the map. We didn't necessarily need to do it in food or beverage, right? We could have done this in fashion, we could have done this in anything. But in our thinking, the thing that everyone gravitates towards, the thing that really is part of literally everything humans do is food and drink, right? We celebrate around food. We like, right? So, the joke my brother and I always give people is someone can be racist as hell in the middle of Hicktown, USA. They'll be sitting there talking, calling Mexicans, all kinds of slur words while they're eating a taco. You know what I mean? So we feel that if you can get people to fall in love with your culture, it becomes impossible for them to hate you as easily. Wow. You know what I mean? They can still, but it becomes a lot harder.
And really, that's what we're trying to do with this.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Do the Right Thing bit where Spike Lee was talking to the brother, and he's like, you know, who's your favorite basketball player? Who's your favorite singer? He's like Michael Jackson, but they're not really black. They're not black. But you know, that kind of idolization of the fact that they kind of reached this pinnacle of success, because success is so synonymous with whiteness. You kind of feel that, you know,
Absolutely.
they're a little closer than the person who's just on the street working a 9-to-5 trying to make ends meet.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
I'll give you an analogy along the food and beverage line. Actually, a clear example. Think about all the beverage trends that have happened of late since we having beverage,
Right,
we're
yeah.
in the food and beverage space. Everything from green tea to kombucha to right.
Right.
These are all foreign products. These are all like, you know, East Asian products that were brought here, right? By usually everyday white Americans, and it blows up, it gets on the map, right? One day we were on a call with a journalist from Cranes, New York, the financial publication.
Oh, wow.
And we're talking to him, he's interviewing remotely, and we're in the office of a big PR company in the US, right? Someone else. We had won a grant and they were working for those guys, and we're on the call so we can get some coverage from these guys. We're talking to this dude. We're telling him about our product, how it's premium, it's sold at Whole Foods, et cetera, et cetera. He goes, all right, is it like these Mexican ices you find in the Bronx on the side of the road?
And this is the journalist.
This is
saying,
Johnny saying that.
wow.
We said, no. And this is right after we told him it's an organic, it's a premium drink, it's, you know, sold at Whole Foods, right? He still had to bring it down and compare it to drinks people are selling on the side of the street, right? We said no. We tried to explain it to him again. Then he asked for the price. We tell him the price. He says, well, our price point is pretty much in line with juices of this caliber, right? He pauses for a second. He says, well, don't you guys think that's a little expensive, right? Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing here a little bit. He says, how does that compare to other white drinks?
Wow.
This dude literally said that.
Wow.
Right? This is a journalist covering businesses, right? We mentioned this to
So out of touch.
we mentioned this to one of a dear friend of ours who's also a phenomenal supporter of ours, who's a white British guy. He laughs and he goes, "Did he mean milk?" You know. But so after you experience things like that so many times, pitching folks. I'll give you one more example along those lines. We were pitching at BevNet. BevNet is a big conference. It's specifically focused on the food space. It's like the event for beverage brands. And we're one of those semi-finalists. We get up there, we pitch out our drink. Funny enough, the team that won had a ginger shot, right? Plain ginger shot. I think it has lemon and honey in it.
And that was the only beverage they were
No,
selling?
it was we were pitching, and there were a bunch of
Right.
other businesses pitching.
But the one that won
The
was
one
a
that
ginger
won
shot.
was a small ginger shot that,
Couldn't rival you guys.
you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, after we pitched, one of the guys that was on the panel gets off and comes over, you know, like when one of the breakout sessions, he comes over to us, says hello. He used to work for, I think he used to work for Coca-Cola, right? But he didn't work for them anymore. He comes up to us and he goes, "Hey guys, listen, we loved your drink, you know, but I feel like you guys should and he lowers his voice and he leans in, you know, you should tone down the African a little bit. You know what I mean? And we could tell that he meant well.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
But that goes to tell you that he knows intuitively, right, that the fact that we're so upfront about the African heritage of our drink will work against us, right?
And if he can see that, and then you got, you know what I'm saying? Like people who try to deny it, oh, it's not because you're black, it's not because of this, or it's not because you're African. No, here's somebody saying it who likes what we're doing and is telling us to do, like, you know, kind of
tone
like
down
back
the
on,
African,
yeah.
right? You know what I mean? It's and that's no different from, you know, you're getting a job working in your office with dreadlocks and someone telling you, hey, you should think about cutting your hair, right? They'll give you that advice, and it's good advice because they know that will work against you. You know what I mean? they mean well when they say that. Or a black woman being literally forced to straighten her hair because she knows that she can be herself, but that would play against her, et cetera, et cetera. You can talk until you're blue in the face about no, it's not, or companies will say, come to work, bring your whole self, but you know it's not the truth, you know? And it's more or less the exact same thing, just in a different context. And this dude used to work for pretty much one of the biggest food companies in the world, right? So this is what we have to deal with when we're pitching VCs, when we're pitching store chains to carry us, right? And in a lot of those cases, a lot of the locations where we've managed to get our product into, it's always been because there was someone in there, a champion, like someone in there that sees beyond, that sees past that sees beyond that, and advocates for us and helps us get in there, you know? At Whole Foods, that person was this lady named Ellie Truesdale, right? She's no longer there, but she's been phenomenal in like pretty much just advocating for us wherever we are. And there's been a number of other people along those lines, but yeah, man, it's real.
Man, I definitely want to get on a little more positive note, because you guys, despite the challenges, despite, you know, how people perceive it, you guys have enjoyed a tremendous amount of success. You know, you won the James Beard Award, which I read is like the Oscars of food and beverage industry. You got the FedEx grant back in 2016. How, you know, getting all of that success from a drink that you literally had to call your mom up about to learn how to drink,
yeah.
And now you're seeing it on the shelves of Whole Foods and Walmart and all of these different convenience stores. When you go shopping, you know, and you're going to pick up eggs or something, you see this on the shelves. How does that make you feel inside?
Oh, it's amazing. Quick correction: we did not win a James Beard Award.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay.
We were one of the showcase brands at the 2018 award ceremony. So one of the featured products that were there, sampling, tasting people. And
still a great feat, nonetheless.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's phenomenal. I just, you know, I don't want people to hear this and go, yeah, this guy making stuff up, you know.
But the FedEx grant was
real.
All right.
Yeah, and it was a lifesaver. That money was spent before we got it. But really, beyond the money, it's those things beyond really the money. Again, we needed the money really, really badly, but it's the validation that comes along with it, right? If we tell someone we're in Whole Foods, it's not like we're making a killing at Whole Foods. You know, it's in people's minds, oh, you've made it. The reality, that's not the case. But it makes them realize that you're for real, right? The powers that be, you've been anointed, you know? So when you associate yourself with, you know, the James Beard Award, Whole Foods, you know, Fresh Direct, you know, you're on Amazon. We just launched on Walmart.com, right? Like all those things, you become real to people, you know? But yeah, it's phenomenal. Every time I give a sample of this to someone and they try it and they react in a positive way, every cup of coffee you pour for someone, everything, right? One day I'm in line at Whole Foods getting coffee. There's a guy, like 3 people ahead of me, and I see him holding 2 bottles of Jinjan. And that's not, I take a picture, and he's just in there looking at it, and I take a picture of him. And he goes up to pay. He pulls out an EBT card, right? This dude is buying, I mean, you know, it's not the cheapest drink because we don't make a cheap drink, right? It's the high quality ingredients. This guy's using his EBT to buy our drink, you know? And I don't know this guy. I'm right behind him, walked past me. I said hi to him, and, you know, but he has no idea who we are. I mean, he probably knows us from, you know, he saw a picture of something maybe, but never met this guy before, right? I had once I'm in Whole Foods and I'm just merchandising our product and just checking up on it. Some lady walks up to me and says, "You should try that. It's really good." Right? I go, "Oh yeah, really?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "How have you had it?" She's like, "Yeah, I get it all the time." Then I ask her. She says, "One of my clients loves it." And you can make this stuff up. Turns out, I asked him, "Who's your client?" Because he's an artist. What kind of artist? Painting or? Because I realized she doesn't want to say. And turns out it's, why am I blanking out? Old boy from The Roots, the drummer.
Questlove?
Questlove.
What?
Turns out she's one.
That's crazy.
Right?
That's
know?
insane. And that, he looks like somebody like he loves the
You
yeah.
know,
He look like he
man.
would love that.
Like, we never met this brother. I can run into Questlove today and he'll have no idea who I am. You know, so yeah, it's you know, we haven't, you know, we're far from, you know, making money, a lot of money from this or anything like that, but yo, that's the fuel that keeps you going, man.
I saw even, you know, on the lines of celebrities, like Wendy Williams is an
Yeah.
ambassador, and did she invest as well? Oh, wow. How did that come about? How did that come, or if you know how that, you know, came about for you guys?
Yeah. It's a friend of ours knew her, and that's how we got connected. And you know, we went back and forth a little bit. She loved the product. At one point, we sent her a case after she had collapsed, and we didn't even know the next day. She like does this minute-long thing on the opening segment.
But this drink right here is part of my rescue. It's Jinjan, Jan. It's from Guinea in Africa. It's so delicious. It's based in all ginger. It burns when it goes down, but it tastes delicious. And thank you, Ginjan Brothers, for sending this to me.
And you guys had no idea she was
We had
going
no
to
idea
do
she
it?
was going to do it. We literally sent it to her, and the next day this happened, right? And right, so all these things makes people, again, we got a lot of orders from it, but it's the validation that comes along with it, right? It's like, so no, it's been a hell of a ride. It's been an amazing experience, and it's only the beginning.
Yeah,
you know?
man. And, you know, one thing that I was thinking about with this, you know, because you said you guys drank this like apple juice growing up, right? And I was thinking, well, you probably couldn't sell this as commercially back in Africa because it's so readily available, right? It's just like everybody, I can assume, you know, you guys are getting it in these plastic tubes, so everybody's kind of making it in their own unique way. But you come over here, and it's like the next big thing, it goes along the lines, because I know you were talking about like Nantucket nectars.
Yeah.
There was only a specific fruit or something that was was it Spain or Portugal, or what region was
I think
it?
it was
there?
Spain. I forget the story.
Yeah, and it's just like it's commonly available there, so you can't market it there.
Right.
But then you bring it over to the States, and it's like we got a cafe out of it, we got this drink out of it. What does that say to you and the culture of Jinjan, the culture of Guinea?
So, we actually do think that this would do really well there. And the reason being, it's not so much, and you're right, everyone makes it at home. I tell folks, think of this as sweet tea or lemonade in the US or down south, if you want to be specific with sweet tea, back in the times when you didn't have major beverage companies, right? Everyone made it at home. It's their grandma's recipe, et cetera, et cetera. But as economies develop, right, people spend less time making food, preparing food, and buy ready-made food more and more, right? So we feel like not only is this already being consumed literally by if you were to say the equivalent of bottles, like millions of bottles a day all over Africa, and not just this beverage, all these other traditional beverages back home, there's no company that owns that market. It's extremely fragmented. So if someone can go in there and be the brand, right, that is known for making all the traditional stuff at a high level, right, priced in a way that it's affordable to the locals, I mean, you'll make a killing, right?
Yeah.
And beyond that, what we want to do is eventually, as we build it here, is to also set up shop back there so that we can get a whole supply chain there. We can buy the ginger there, the pineapples, etc. You have farmers out there that have crops that literally go to waste every year because a lot of the food is lost along the processing chain, right? Over here in the developed world, roughly 30 to 40% of food, some people say as high as 50, is wasted at the point of consumption, right? So that's you and me buying meat or buying whatever, going home, not eating it, having it go bad and throwing it in the trash can, right? Over there, a lot of that happens at the point of production, like harvest, processing, storage, along the supply chain. So a lot of it is lost there. So there's a lot of opportunities to not only buy from folks there, but create jobs there, or show them how it's made down there, and also, pass along some of the skill sets they may be lacking to really take their agricultural goods and plug into the global supply chain, right? So these are all like the motivations behind us doing this the way we're doing it, right? My brother studied business. I'm an engineer by training. I would not have thought in a million years that I would be in food and beverage. I mean, I worked in restaurants in college, bartended, did all that, but I thought that would have stopped the minute I finished school.
Right.
But yeah, it's all those other things that motivate us to do this, and that's the reason why we're doing this the way we are.
And you guys started back in, was 2014, right? You guys kind of
2015, yeah.
2015.
We started
okay.
thinking about it and doing
2014, right? So, and you guys, you were talking about the reason you did it because you didn't feel that African culture was really being represented in the way you thought it should be, right?
Yeah.
You guys were tasting Jinjan locally, over here, and you were like something was missing. What makes the way you guys make it kind of unique to you, different than anybody else who would typically make it?
Yeah, so like you said earlier, when we decided to make this, we'd been drinking it our whole life, but we'd never made it ourselves. We had a general sense of how it's made, but again, we hadn't made it in forever. So we called up my mom, called up essentially the what do you call it? The source of knowledge.
Okay, yeah.
And
you guys weren't used to cooking back home because everything was kind of done fried.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm one of the guys. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen with my mom because I liked hanging out with my mom, helping her out. But for the most part,
observation.
I was a little chunky kid and I liked eating a lot, so that's why I hung out in the kitchen. A lot. But no, we didn't really have to cook. So yeah, we got a recipe from my mom, and that was our starting point.
And that was literally like the first thing you guys did was just like call up mom, like, hey ma, how do you kind of make this?
Yeah. We're thinking about starting a food and beverage company, and we want to launch with Jinjan. Really, if we had all the resources we needed from the get-go, we would have launched with more than this, right? But it's a good thing. If anyone's out there is listening and, want business advice, stay focused, pick one thing, start out with that, make that work, and, build from there, So she gave us her recipe. We came home and we started messing around with it, right? We tweaked it a little bit. We added a couple of things that maybe, we didn't use back home, but we wanted to make sure that if someone from back home took it and drank it, there'll be no question as to, hey, what this is, right? We only wanted to taste like the best version of this drink they've ever had. Not to be like, oh, it tastes like Jinjan, but it's not quite like that, right?
And that's how you guys felt when you were tasting it over here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want it to be very authentic, but really high quality. That's why we buy organic produce and all that. We could make the drink much cheaper than it is, but, if you're going to do it, we want to do it right. And we also didn't want to give room for anyone to come in and say, oh, we make that drink, but with better ingredients and et cetera, right? So yeah, we tweaked it from there, and until we found a recipe that we're happy with, we tested it out with a lot of people. When we started, I used to manage a bar, so we'd make it in water jugs, like literally like regular, water jugs or gallon water jugs, and we'll bring it to this bar, and anyone that I meet and that we click with, I hit it off with, I'll give them a sample and say, hey, listen, this is the product we're thinking about bringing to the bar here. But we don't know how people will react to it, so we'd love for you to give us some feedback without telling them that it's our product. That way they'll be very honest with you. And we did this literally, with hundreds and hundreds of people until we got to a point where we felt like, all right, people love this stuff. And then we got going. Then the real fun began.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So along you guys' kind of business ventures, like I said, the ups and downs have been there, but definitely want to kind of focus in on COVID because it's still something we're going through. what is like, maybe you can boil it down to one just general lesson, but what are some of the lessons that you took away from kind of experiencing that while having a business, a small business is just trying to, eclipse this great amount of success? What has it taught you kind of having to deal with this so early on?
I think we're still learning. And COVID caught us all by surprise, and when you start a business, you very quickly realize you learn very early on that nothing ever goes as planned. Nothing ever goes as planned, but COVID is that to the extreme, but what we've learned out of it is you keep going, right? You keep going. Like in our case, we have a brick and mortar location. We have a landlord, so you communicate. You reach out to a landlord. Get on the same page with them. Let them know what's going on, and you find that most people are fairly reasonable. And so that's one lesson, and specifically to the brick and mortar side. But beyond that, we kept going. We launched. I don't know if I mentioned this to you last time, or even if you had started it, but we did this thing where initially we wanted to just give bottles of Jinjan to healthcare workers at Harlem Hospital nearby, but we couldn't afford to give. We reached out to them, and they told us we wanted to give them 500 bottles. They told us they have about 1,600 employees there, and we felt like we want to give them enough,
Right.
So we came up with this idea to just make it possible for other people to join us and contribute to it. And that was a phenomenal success, right? We opened it up, and people were very excited to come in, buy 1 bottle, 2 bottles. Normally we don't sell 1 or 2 bottles, but folks can buy it and gift it to the hospital. We had people buying it and shipping it to other hospitals throughout the country.
Wow.
So, and that's something you wouldn't have ever thought of. You could have literally just sat at home and waited for things to kind of blow over, and that led to people reaching out to us, wanting to do things like podcasts, and so just keep moving. That's really the biggest lesson. Keep moving, keep going, and help yourself. Help yourself. If outside help comes, it's a cherry on the cake, right? It's a frosting on the cake, or whatever that saying is.
Cherry on top,
of the cherry on top, right? But yeah, let's keep moving.
For any young entrepreneurs coming up in whatever business it may be, whether it's getting into fashion or they're kind of breaking into whatever other business ventures there may be, what is your advice to them? Not to because a lot of people get so caught up on the end goal, on where they want to be. They want to have the millions of dollars and the glitz and the glamour. But that process in between is really what separates those who just have an idea and those who kind of taking that to the next level. So what advice do you have for them that's like, it's not always going to be glory. It's not always going to be these easy positive times that you can post on Instagram and smile and laugh. Advice to them to, when they're just getting started. If the only thing driving you, right, to start a business is to make money, that's the main drive, then do it, right? I tell people business is the dumbest way to get rich, right? And it's the hardest way to get rich, being an entrepreneur, right? If you just want to make money, go learn a skill that's very hard to learn, like super high in demand. Go learn machine learning, right? Go be like a world-class software engineer. Become, I don't know, an underwater, soldering and things like. There are a lot of jobs out there like that pay a lot of money, right? And you take no risk. You have secure money coming in. You have total control. You have somewhat control of your time, because business is not the getting up and doing the things you have to do every day. That's not the hard part. It's the emotional component of it, right? There's no you. The buck stops with you. And all the stresses of being an entrepreneur will be there, but life doesn't stop. Life doesn't stop, right? People will die around you. You'll break up with people. People will break up with you.
you'll have all kinds of problems. You get into accidents. Like life does not stop. All the things that happen normally will keep happening, and then all the stresses of being of having a business.
Add on top
On
of
top
that,
of
and
that.
then you add investors on
You
top
are-
of that.
And when you get investors, then it's like next level, right? And it takes a long time, right? There are no overnight successes.
No, get rich quick
right?
scheme,
Look,
yeah.
Anyone comes to you, do this, do a 2-week boot camp, 6-month boot camp. Yeah, go ahead, do the boot camp, but be prepared to put in another 2, 3, 5 years in the rest of your life honing that skill, right? Because otherwise, you're not gonna make it. So yeah, if you want to start something, one, you can do it, right? Anyone that ever been an entrepreneur, they're not especially bright compared to the rest of the world.
Right. Or they kind of like outcasted, so that's the reason they chose entrepreneurship.
right.
Like Gary V comes to mind.
Listen, man, I when I finished college, I thought, I'm graduating with an engineering degree. I'm not gonna have a hard time getting a job. I've literally I applied to thousands of jobs. I am not joking. I have I do all the right things, like tailoring the resume, writing a cover letter for every single one of them. I still have tons of them still on my laptop, right? And I think I had 3 callbacks and one, and all 3 of them were with General Motors, because I studied material science. And then,
and you were in Michigan too, so that kind of makes sense.
Even after I left Michigan, I was still applying to engineering type stuff. And then later, because through college I became very interested in finance, simply because I wanted to understand the money component of it. I realized that a lot of engineering innovations that are perfectly ready for the market, as far as the technology goes, never make it to market because financially it doesn't make sense. So I wanted to understand the finance part. And as I started learning that on my own, I became really interested. So I wanted to be a management consultant or work in investment banking for a while and really learn that. So I tried to get into that a lot too. The closest I ever came to even getting an interview was I had a buddy whose brother worked at Goldman Sachs, and I convinced him to introduce me to his brother, and they called me in, and I went and met him. Just met him at the offices. That's the closest thing I got to getting a job there, right? And then it never got past that. So some of it is out of necessity, right? And the other part is, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My mom's an entrepreneur. I grew up around entrepreneurs. But yeah, man, it's unpredictable. But if you're gonna go into it, if you're gonna start a business, do it for the right reasons. If you just want to get rich, get a job. Get a job, save your money, invest. You're gonna get rich. I guarantee you'll get rich.
Right, yeah. There's no guarantee at all. Yeah, man. So another thing I would definitely want to tap on, we're right here in kind of like the heart of Harlem, right? We're right off the Metro North on 125th. How important was it to kind of set up shop here as opposed to, other kind of beautified parts of Manhattan? This isn't really the most ideal when you come down, but then it's just this is kind of safe haven, amongst all the kind of the madness going on around.
Yeah, Harlem for Black culture, Harlem not just in the U.S. I remember when I was a little kid back in Guinea, one of the schools, one of the well-known schools back home was called Renaissance, and I don't think it was named after the Harlem Renaissance, but that's when I started actually hearing about the Harlem Renaissance.
Right, you made the connection,
right?
Yeah.
And as kids, again, when you're outside of the Western world, like U.S. Europe, especially the U.S., this thing, this place. It's like you think you go there, you're in heaven.
The streets are paved with
right?
gold, and yeah.
But beyond that, specifically regarding Black culture, you see pictures of old Harlem, right? Like in the 60s, 70s, the era in Harlem that made Harlem what it is, right? Like really refined, dignified Black folks. It really became this place where literally any Black person that comes in the U.S. wants to come to Harlem, right?
Right.
So it held that power over us, and now we live here, right? I live 5 minutes away from this coffee shop, and so being here, having the opportunity to start a business here, in Harlem of all places, and just having a chance to start a business, to be honest, it's an amazing privilege. right? And getting to do it in Harlem of all places, we couldn't have imagined a better place to start it in, especially for the type of brand we're looking to build. You know, this idea of making African food, drink, and aesthetics.
Right, which has a heavy African culture and influence here already. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if there was ever a place that would embrace what we're doing, it's Harlem, and they have. You know, the community's been amazingly supportive. You know, you come in here when outside of COVID time,
everything's a little normal.
like the
Yeah.
vibe in here is just amazing. You know, we bump, from the music we play to and just the way the people are in here, right? It's phenomenal. So we're super grateful to be here.
Man, this has been incredible for me, man. Definitely want to wrap up because I had you sitting here for an hour, man. But you gave me so much.
Thank you.
Where can people find Jinjan? How can they, get in touch with you? And is the investing still open for people to invest in Jinjan, or is that kind of closed off?
Right now, so the equity crowdfunding campaign we did back last year, that's closed. But we'll be raising hopefully a lot of money in the future.
And you guys raised what on that campaign alone was like close to 200,000.
Yeah, about 182 grand. It's a lot
And
of.
that's all through crowdfunding.
All crowdfunding. Most of it total strangers, right? And it wasn't, big dollar investments. It's mostly people investing $350 at a time, which was the minimum we had set, right? And and a lot of them really are people that they're not expecting, because even if this blows up, right, becomes like this massive company, those people will not have, the types of money that will completely change their lives. But we know they're doing it because they like what we're doing and they just wanting to be a part of it. And that's extremely gratifying, right? So that's closed right now, but stay tuned. Follow us on our Instagram.
Where's that? What's the ad-on
It's at Ginjan Bros. So it's GinjanBros. And that's the same for all the social media channels. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook. And Twitter, we're on Twitter as well, but really the place for us is Instagram. It's a visual thing.
Right, absolutely.
And if you're looking to find the product itself, the easiest way is online on our website. You get on there, get a case, we'll ship it anywhere in the nation. We have people that subscribe to it and get it. Some folks get it once a week, bi-monthly, once a month. Some folks get it every quarter, so every 3 months essentially. And in brick and mortar retailers, we're at Whole Foods in the New York City area.
It's insane. That's
Right?
crazy. That's so crazy.
Hopefully soon it'll be Whole Foods nationwide. That'd be super cool. We're on Amazon, so if you prefer to shop on Amazon, you can get us on there. We just launched on Walmart.com, so you can find us on there as well. And if you're in New York, right, the best place to get it, come to the cafe, right? Because in here, right, we wanted to
You get the atmosphere of it. This is literally, I feel Africa
There you
in
go.
here, man. Like I just step in and it's like the colors, the ambiance, the table, everything, you kind of get that
That's
feel.
what we're looking to do. And the vision with the coffee shops is to open these in major metropolitan areas. So imagine a few of them in New York, places like, Boston, D.C., Atlanta, Houston, Chicago, right? Like cities like that, right? Because our goal is to make African food, drink, and aesthetics an integral part of global culture, right? We don't want it to be a niche product, a niche thing. The same way you'll go buy a bottle of champagne and not think twice about it being French. We want you to, or kombucha nowadays. We want you to be able to go buy, grab Jinjan, have it with lunch, as if it's just another drink that you happen to enjoy, right? And that's our goal.
I know Muhammad say he wants Jinjan to be as synonymous and equacious as Coca-Cola.
Exactly.
Man. Yeah, so we'll see.
Exactly.
I believe it's gonna be there. I have no doubt in my mind that you guys are gonna continue to succeed, man. I really appreciate you, sitting down with me, let me come into the space, take up some of your time, man.
No, Corey, thank you so much for not only for having us on your platform, but for coming down here and spending time with us. It took us a lot of time to set this up, and you and your whole team, right? It's a major investment of time, and there's nothing I value more than people giving me their time. right? So thank you so much. I really appreciate
Absolutely,
it.
man. Absolutely, my God. And that is done for another episode of the Up and Coming Podcast. Stay tuned. We have a lot more coming. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram. That's at the Up and Coming Podcast _. That's it, man.